Okay, friends, welcome back to the Applied Leadership Podcast. My name is Blaine Smith, and I'm here as always, my good friend and partner, Brandon Young. And we've got an interesting question today, which is sort of an amalgamation of a lot of questions that we get. And it has a lot to do with growth or scale, or maybe we'll talk about the word enough at some point in this. But over the course of our travels, as we're out meeting with clients and talking to friends and catching up with people over coffee, we're a little over 4 years into our business now at Applied Leadership Partners at this point, and it's going well. We feel good about it.
Pretty stoked.
And we get, yeah, stoked so far. I'm still doing it. But we get the question or questions that sound a lot like, what are your plans for growth? What are your plans for scale? Are you looking to really grow the business? And they're all good-natured questions. I appreciate every single one of them. Sometimes it's because people have a genuine interest in perhaps working with us someday. Sometimes it's just because they care about us and they want to know if the business is doing well. And I think some of it comes out of just a natural inclination we have as people, as Americans especially, to just sort of presume that, for a business to be healthy, it should be growing or growing rapidly. That's kind of the paradigm that we're in right now with the markets and the business environment. And you and I talk about this a lot, kind of informally. I don't think we ever really talked about it much publicly, or certainly not on the podcast. And so I thought maybe we would talk about that today, and I'll send it over to you just to get some initial thoughts. But what do you think? I know you're having these conversations with people. Again, you and I talk about it quite a lot, but what is your maybe reflexive or instinctive response if you're having a beer, having a coffee with a buddy or a client out at dinner, and they say, how's business going? What are your plans for growth? Are you looking to really grow this thing?
Well, my initial response is always flattery, to be honest with you. I have been overwhelmed by the amount of people that we know very well and respect very much who have been rooting for us throughout this journey. And so when I say flattery, I don't mean it in a overly dramatic way. I mean it in the way that it is truly a blessing that I feel that people care about us enough, value us enough, are with us enough, are really in our corner enough to be rooting for us so much that they are consistently interested and want to know how we're doing and how we're going and how we're growing. I'm always also a little bit surprised when a comment that I know you and I have both heard a number of times is, geez, I see you guys are all over the place on social media right now. I see you guys all over the place. And that is kind of surprising because I think that, and I've talked about this on the podcast, my boundaries with social media, I think, have gotten much better over the years. I just, I remember years ago, we spent a lot of time on social media because we were really growing a movement in 200 and plus locations, and so you kind of really had to be consistently engaging with where people were at. And at the time, I think Facebook was doing quite a bit of good in connecting people in that regard. Not to suggest that they're not doing good now, but point being that since that time, I have taken a step away from really broadcasting my life on social media. And so when I hear people say, you guys are everywhere and you guys look like you're growing and you guys are doing great and what's the plan? I'm always like, man, I'm glad we have Sarah on the team first and foremost, because she has been exceptional in helping us to bring our story and what we're doing, our words, our thoughts, our heart to life out there. Without her, there's no way that anybody would ever come back and say, wow, you guys are just, really paying attention to what you're doing. So, and then I think that where I go after the initial flattery and the appreciation is I go to the core question that we consistently ask ourselves and one another: for who and for what. And in its purest form, we exist to share hard-earned leadership wisdom with leaders who are on the front lines of missions that matter, and they're trying to do their best and get better as best they can. That's in essence what we're all about. I would give that to anybody I could. anybody. Um, it is our hope that we can give that to more people. And so when I think of for who, I think about all the leaders that are going through some brand of growth, change, or adversity are kind of the words that we typically throw around because they're easy blankets to kind of explain where we're best suited, doing things that matter and just help them. Because I think in the end of the day, leadership is all. People always say leadership's a lonely place. I know we wholeheartedly reject that. It doesn't have to be a lonely place, and that's why we're in the business that we're in. And so that's kind of the first things that I think about is, let's get down to first principles thinking for who and for what. By that regard, the answer is yeah, we'd like to see this grow. We'd like to serve more people.
Yeah. I think for me, that's the healthy tension that is always kind of living in my brain, is the fact that there's a part of me that, without even having to explain it, there's just sort of this internal drive to want to grow, to want to serve more people, to want to have a little bit bigger, certainly have a better business. I'm just wired that way. I've been at it long enough. And so I would be lying to you and everybody else if I said I didn't care at all about growing or getting any bigger or any better or serving bigger audiences. I mean, I certainly do want to do that in a way that I almost don't need to explain to myself. It's just kind of in there, and it propels me forward to a certain degree. But I'm also checking myself all the time, and we do this for one another with the for who, for what. We don't want to just grow for growth's sake. I don't want to do anything in my life. I certainly don't want to manage my business in a way that's just because that's the way people do it, or that's the way someone told me I should do it, or that's the way other. I can't do that. And so,
right.
Yes, I want to almost innately, but I also want to resist just the drift or that pull to do it just cause. And so I feel very lucky, actually, in that sense, in that I have an internal drive to want to keep going forward and do more. I think that's a wonderful thing, and I'm glad I have it. And I'm glad that I also have a bit of a sensitivity to sort of growth for growth's sake. And that's probably been instilled in me over time. I think I've probably learned that from a lot of smart people. I think my parents probably helped me with that growing up. I've probably seen enough cautionary tales or been in enough frustrating board meetings to sort of build that into, now a part of my DNA, which is, yes, I always want to be getting better, but I always want to be doing it for a specific reason. And I want to be able to, I need to be able to articulate the purpose for that growth. And that's something that you and I spent a lot of time on in the first half of this year, as we've talked about our strategic plan or looking a couple of years out, or how we may or may not leverage this forthcoming book that we have. What do we want to do with this, and what would kind of healthy or responsible growth look like for our business? And depending on who you ask, some people would just knee jerk say, you've got to have a product. You got to productize yourself and have something that's scalable. And I don't disagree with that. But again, would I be proud of that product? Would it be serving people in the way that we care about? If so, then maybe yes, but not just because. You could hire a lot more people, and we could have consultants out all over the country kind of using our frameworks to teach. I think that could work, and maybe we get there someday. But again, who are these people? Do we really love and care about them? Do they believe what we believe? Can they do an amazing job and give our clients an 11 out of 10 experience? If yes, then okay, let's think about it. If no, maybe not. So that's kind of where I'm always at with this, is in this healthy tension of, yeah, I want to grow, if I'm being honest, but I need to be pretty clear on how and why.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that you've noted there's a part of both of our DNA that is high achiever. We are high achievers. I remember my good friend Sandy, when she came to my seminary graduation, we were at the after party, and she looked at me and she said, "So what's next?" And I said, "What do you mean? I just graduated, Denver Seminary. What are you talking about? I just finished a 3.5-year master's degree." She's like, "I know you, Brandon. You're an achiever. What's next?" I said, "Well, actually, we are working on a book." Aha! So yeah. It is innately part of our DNA, and I also share that healthy respect. It's a lot like the first rule of explosives is respect it. I feel like that's also probably the first rule of success is you need to respect it. And you need to be aware of, all the cautionary tales that are out there for a reason. The cautionary experiences that I have led, places where I have personally felt like I've gotten lost along the way. Those are things that I remember. I don't want to get lost along the way in the success or anything like that. And I don't mind saying that out loud because it's just true. I think there are plenty of cautionary tales out there. And I also go back to, our founding thesis when we started this company. I remember saying this. I think it was while we were, sipping coffees at the bodega in Tampa there in the January of 2020, I think it was, sometime around then. I remember us saying, I'm not super interested in being a professional veteran or a veteran celebrity, and I'm not super interested in this being kind of like the Blaine and Brandon show. But we are super interested. Both of us felt very interested in building a platform that we could pull other great leaders up onto to share the wisdom that they have earned over the years. And we're very blessed to be connected to a number of just incredibly talented, well-experienced, gifted leaders who, at this stage, 4 years in, many of them have in some way, shape, or form reached out and said, "Hey, just letting you know, if you ever have an opportunity where you'd like to pull some other folks in, we'd be interested." And so that is incredibly appealing, I know, to both of us. I feel I can speak for both of us on this because we've talked about it since the inception of our company. And we never really wanted to just, I don't know, be, two names, so to speak. We talked from the get-go about building a team. We want to build a team. And in fact, you were doing consulting work before you and I, connected and decided to start this. And you even said, like, "Hey man, I'm kind of, it's great. I get to work with great people, serve great people. And it's just not for me if I can't have a team, like I just want to be with a team."
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one for me. And maybe to roll that forward with regard to the tension I often feel, it's once you've had a little bit of success and maybe you do have an opportunity to bring some other people onto the team or to go a little bigger on some things, it brings up a whole nother set of challenges, which is you have to, I think, make an honest assessment of why you may choose to stay small, right? Because there are plenty of good reasons to resist kind of getting bigger. But there are plenty of good reasons to expand and get bigger. Some of what you just mentioned, right? I mean, you could bring more people in. We could have a bigger team. We could spend more time with people we really like. We could serve more people. So there are good reasons. I mean, there are financial reasons to expand, obviously. So there are plenty of good reasons to grow. And one of the things that I think we need to watch out for, I certainly need to watch out for, is staying small for the wrong reasons. Because in the same way you could get big for the wrong reasons, you could stay small for the wrong reasons, perhaps, right? And pulling apart and thinking hard about what those reasons might be and keeping an eye out for them in ourselves is also important. And so, are we staying small just because we're afraid to take a little bit of risk? Do we not want to put some of our chips that we've earned back on the table? Are we at all concerned about losing control or like creative control of what we're doing? It's a little easier just having 2 or 3 of us in the kitchen. It's going to get harder if we bring more people in and have less control. So there are reasons, there are also just internal reasons. Like people have limiting beliefs. You have them, I have them, we all have them. Are there limiting beliefs that might, be kind of whispering in our ear to just kind of stay small, don't reach too far. You might fail, or somebody might start chucking spears at you because you've gotten a little big for your britches. I mean, these are all things that I think everybody wrestles with at some point. I'm just being honest and saying that I do. And so that's the other side of the coin for me, I guess, which is I don't want to try to get big because that's just what companies are supposed to do. I also don't want to stay small for the wrong reasons. And this becomes the conversation that you and I have, over a glass of bourbon every January as we think about, what are we doing here,
Yeah. I appreciate you mentioning that. I mean, it's totally true. You know, we all have those internal rate limiting factors. Those you know, the voices inside of our heads and whatnot. That's definitely a factor for me. You know, imposter syndrome is very real. Who am I to say, you know, such a thing of, you know, this or that? It's definitely real. And I do feel, I feel very fortunate that the open dialogue has always been on the table in our company. That open dialogue, the reality of having these feelings, right? Having these feelings, these limiting beliefs, or you know, and also held in tension with the desire to grow, because yeah, you know, so we're what, 16 minutes in, and now I'll come back to the original question. You know, do you guys want to grow? Yeah, yeah, we are growing. There you have
Yeah.
it.
Well,
All the stuff that we just talked about is, and that is held in tension with everything we just talked about. Everything that we just talked about is still there, present, and on the table. Not to mention the fact that we also hold in tension, what does the impact on our family look like? You know, we hear people say to me all the time, like, geez, man, you're like traveling all the time. And I'm like, so, yeah, yeah. And um, I share with this all to people all the time. You know, we have an agreement with our board of directors, which is Jenny Smith and Kelly Young, that we're going to be on a plane twice a month. You know, most of those times it's a 2-day trip. Maybe it's a 1.5-day kind of trip. Sometimes it's 3. Sometimes it flexes more. And we also are very fortunate to reserve the right to, you know, bring one of our spouses with us if we can do it, or bring one of our kids with us, or whatever, because we reserve the right to do that, and we're taking those opportunities, and that's good. But make no mistake about it, you and me have lived the life on the road
okay.
well, to the extreme. We have seen what it actually looks like, and we've seen the damage that it creates and the tension that it creates, and that's not nothing either. We think about that a lot. And so again, you know, that gives us more opportunity and more motivation to grow the business in a responsible way, grow the team to grow the business, vice versa, so that we can grow the impact.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And, you know, let's just talk about business here for a little bit, because I think covering some of these personal, kind of intellectual and emotional factors really matters a lot. But at the end of the day, business is still hard. And we can't just snap our fingers and grow our business or decide whether we want to, yes or no. I mean, there's a marketplace that we're out working in and competing in, if we're being very honest. And businesses don't just grow by accident. And, you know, we've been lucky in that we work in a small business that is a bootstrapped business, you know, meaning we started with no capital other than a few bucks from you and I. And we have grown almost entirely through organic growth, meaning kind of word of mouth, or by doing more work with people we've already worked with. And that's been a beautiful model for us to grow our business. We didn't risk a lot of capital up front. You know, the margin, it's a very high margin business because we're in consulting and services. And so we've been able to bootstrap our business and organically grow. And that's been great for a lot of reasons, but there's also, you know, only so fast you can grow a business like that. Other people might choose to take more of their capital up front and throw it at the business and open up a storefront, or have 6 or 8 people on their team right out of the gates, do more in advertising, you know, whether it's, you know, paid social or Google AdWords or SEO or whatever, so they can grow their business more quickly from the beginning. That's a perfectly acceptable way to do it. You and I just don't have a lot of experience growing businesses that way. We are, you know, led venture-backed businesses and that kind of thing. I worked at Team RWB, which was a bootstrapped organic growth business. GoRuck is a family-owned business that grew organically over its first 10 years. And we're doing this now. So this is just kind of the business model I think we're comfortable with in terms of our experience and our capabilities, and just our disposition just lends itself more to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that informs our growth strategy, or just the growth of our business, as much as anything else. I mean, sometimes just the mechanics of your business, the market that you're playing in, the way that your business has been funded will determine to an extent how you choose to grow your business. And I'd like to think that we're growing in a way that's consistent with, the mechanics of our business, but that's going to reach a limit too, right? I mean,
Yes.
one of the best things you could hope for, and something that we kind of have going on right now, is you start a little business, the market keeps asking for more, and then you start having high quality problems, which is people want more of what we're selling, which is great, but now we've got to figure out how to give them more without breaking the business or breaking ourselves or our households. And I don't know that we're exactly there, but that's basically the state of our business. Is we're lucky, people want more, we want to do more. And what's the next kind of step in order to be able to get there that's still consistent with all the things we've talked about so far?
Yeah, one of the questions that our friend Jan Rutherford asks me often when we sit down for coffee is, one of the first things he asks me is, are you as busy as you want to be? And I love that question. And I most of the time can say, yeah, I'm definitely as busy as I want to be. And so that's something I think about as well a lot, and I know, like, I appreciate you talking about the business aspect of it. I'm mostly talking about how I feel about the business, but it's purposeful, because even from the get-go when we started our business, one of the core questions that we have asked ourselves is, what do we want our business to feel like? How do we want it to actually feel every single day? And so I think I skew a lot towards that in my initial thinking. And I'm always aware of my audience. Oftentimes when we're talking to folks that are, high finance disposition and background, and I explain to them many of the things that I've just shared, they're kind of just like, yeah, no, that's cool. But I'm talking more like, are you going to take on some equity, you can take on
Some growth capital? What's going on here?
Growth capital. Can I introduce you to people who can, help you kind of uncork this thing and get it? I'm just like, oh, no, I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I'm not. This is the truth.
Yeah. No, well, so the word feel is so important, because you and I have talked about that from the very beginning. And I think about that with regard to my whole life. I really want to care a lot more about how my life feels every day than how it looks, right? And a business could be very much the same way, because at the end of the day, you got to be in this thing. We live this day in and day out, every single day. And this is a bed we've made for ourselves. And so let's be smart about what bed we choose to lie in. And I think we've done a really nice job of that. I think what's interesting, and some of the conversations we're starting to have lend toward this, is it's possible you want different things at different times too, right? And so when I think about how I want the business to feel, 4 years ago, it may have been one thing. Today, there's probably a lot of overlap, but I do sort of have that itch to have teammates, to have a little bit more interaction. I'm starting to feel the pull toward engaging with more folks and maybe teaching some people what we've learned and pulling them up onto that platform. I get a ton of value out of the calls I have, probably once a week, maybe twice, with people who are looking to get into teaching or looking to get into consulting. And I find I have so much fun just having a 30-minute or a 60-minute call with somebody, just kind of pro bono or something like that. And that reminds me, like, ooh, this is a big part of who I am. So thinking about things, creating things, sharing with clients, yes, I love that. But I also love building a team and teaching other people how to teach and things along those lines. So sometimes it's just the life cycle of the business and where you're at. And if you're a high achieving person, you're likely to get a little bit stale on some of the things that you did for a few years and look to add some new things. And so that's also something I'm trying to pay a lot of attention to, is not just kind of guarding what we've had so far, but having a willingness to evolve the business in a way that may not be for financial growth exactly, but just for personal growth, or just for more fulfillment as a leader and as a business person, or just as a person, frankly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I do know what you mean. And, it reminds me of all the conversations that I'm having as well with people who want to get into this space. And one of the initial constructs of our business, or values, if you want to call it that, is generosity. And we've had the opportunity to be generous in giving, folks opportunities. We have a couple of people specifically that are, kind of quote on the bench that are, kind of pulling in right now actively. And that's really exciting. It's really exciting to start to get some of their feedback and start to hear their excitement for getting into this kind of space, and the ability to actually give value to them, because there are plenty of people who have extended value to us in the process, like Jan Rutherford or like Steve Shenbaum. Their willingness to operate from a place of abundance has just been JD Dolan, another one, just been a real blessing to us, and has really helped us out a lot. And so the fact that we get to extend that now feels pretty darn good as well. And it also feels good knowing that we're doing it in a way that is building our business, building our team, and increasing impact and the potential for us to make greater impacts in the world, because we just believe fundamentally that most of the world's big problems are big L leadership problems. And if we can be a small part of someone's big story, making a change in that, we're in. Count us in. Us and the crew that we're building. We're 100% in. Call me. So
Yeah.
here's an interesting way we might finish this podcast. I have a capstone question for both of us. Okay,
let's do it.
If you were to parachute into Applied Leadership Partners in 3 years, what would it look like and what would it feel like?
Whew. It's a good question. Fortunately, I've thought a lot about this. I'll see how well my answer aligns with yours, hopefully somewhat. I would say core team is still pretty small. I'd say we have half a dozen, probably tops, core kind of full-time people working on various aspects of the business. And we've got a bench of a dozen or more 1099 folks we can go to the bullpen and they could come in and do an amazing job delivering content to clients and partners around the country. Maybe it's once a quarter, maybe it's once a month, maybe it's more often than that. But that would be sort of my dream come true. I think at the moment would be to have a little bit bigger core team, but not a real big one. But then to have a noticeably bigger kind of part-time or 1099 team of consultants and teachers that we're able to give opportunities to take a day or two of PTO from your full-time job, get on the road with us, teach some leadership development, hit the hotel gym workout, go out to dinner. I mean, I just enjoy that time with you so much. I don't love airports and hotels, but I love the time that we get to spend together, the two of us, and with our clients. I feel like it's so life-giving. And I would love to have another 10 or 12 people that I got to do that with, or they got to do it with one another, to just experience the amazing experience that we get every time that we go on the road. It really is a fun way to live and a fulfilling way to work. And I would feel more fulfilled if more people had that opportunity. It'd be really fun, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the exact same from the inside. From the outside, I would also say that we have a successful book launch that has opened us up to different audiences, different opportunities that we can share that kind of wisdom. I would say that, I think at this point in time, we really know where our core competency lies, and it is square in the middle of leadership development, getting with teams, getting on the ground, giving them some thoughtful frameworks that they can use, getting to understand exactly what they're experiencing and going through, and really helping them get on the same page, helping them establish that common language to increase the effectiveness of their organization. Keynotes, I think, is just another really strong part of our bailiwick to be able to continue to offer to people. They're challenging, they're a hell of a lot of fun, and we get a heck of a lot out of it. And so do the people who have been in our audiences. We have gotten a ton of incredibly positive feedback about how useful those experiences have been. Continued growth in some of our sales solutions that we have to offer. That's just something that we have a core competency in. And again, it's just a hell of a lot of fun.
Yep.
It's a heck of a lot of fun to teach people things like you don't have to be that annoying, slick, irritating salesperson. You can just actually be a sales professional in the end of the day, you can be a human being to another human being. And if your needs and wants align, you can get there. 1 + 1 can equal 3. And then, the other thing is just our frontline leadership program. I do see us growing that significantly, and I see us really unleashing a lot of that additional talent in those settings, because we have just seen that by comparison, the cost per individual for a executive coach versus walking through a modeled out leader development program in a cohort where you can interact and get some of that high touch executive coaching at proper intervals, but still be able to walk forward with, some very detailed frameworks. I see that growing as well as we kind of move forward into the space, because I think what we have found is that for the folks that we have kind of seen in both senses, they feel that it is actually more cost effective, so lower cost and greater impact. So I think that's really exciting. And I do think it's important to mention that when we talk about growing our business, is that we are going to continue to grow our business in the way that we know we are best suited to bring value into the world, as opposed to chasing shiny objects that just don't feel like they're a good fit for us. And again, that's not disparaging anybody else or any other approach that anyone else takes. That's just what's right for us.
Sure. One more thing here before we close up shop. I would like, with that success, for us to be able to be even more generous. One of the things we've talked about is making a social impact with this business. And I don't think we're ever going to be like the biggest philanthropists in the world, but we've started to give back, in this past year. And I really want for our ability to give, to support others, whether it's through, financial resources or advice or other things. I really would love in a few years to feel like that is even outpacing the growth of the business from a revenue perspective. And I think we can do that. So always want to keep that one on the front burner as well.
For sure, especially with the partners that we have. One of our partners at the end of last year said, "Hey, I noticed that you guys did this contribution. We want in next time. We want to match your contributions." Right. And that just speaks to the quality of the human beings that we get to serve every day. And what better gift could we have than to wake up every day and serve just great people who are trying to do their very best for their people and those that they serve? We'll take that all day. We'll grow that all day. And with that, I think that's probably as good as we can get for right now.
There you go. Applied Leadership Partners, strategic growth plan, fully behind the curtain. Everyone knows now. There's no surprises.
Yeah, ready, cut. So anyways, hey, thanks for joining us. We love having you guys on the trail with us, and we invite as many folks to join the trail with us. If you enjoyed this, please share it with somebody. And also, if you have a question, please send it in. Contact@appliedleadershippartners.com, and we'll see you guys next time.